Listen, you hit a wall. That big dream, it didn't pan out. Or maybe life just took a sharp, unexpected turn, and it left you feeling completely defeated. A quiet weariness has settled in your bones, a feeling not just of disappointment, but of failure. But what if that weariness, that raw feeling of failure, isn't the universe punishing you? What if it's nudging you towards your greatest transformation? You're not imagining it. The truth is that feeling, it's heavier now, isn't it? A LinkedIn study found that over half of professionals over 45 fear a late career failure is a full stop, a verdict. That's a fear younger generations just don't feel as deeply. This video, it is not about positive thinking. It's not about telling you to just bounce back. It's about a radical new perspective. An invitation to explore how these exact moments of disappointment can become the most powerful catalysts for deep shadow work, guiding you to reclaim the parts of yourself you never even knew were missing. It's time to discover how embracing your perceived shortcomings can unlock an untapped well of inner wisdom. This journey starts now. Listen, so let's talk about that wall. Let's talk about that dream. Once upon a time, you had a blueprint. It was the dream you nurtured through late nights, the one you sacrificed for, the one that became the North Star of your identity. Maybe it was a business you were building, brick by brick. Maybe it was a career you were climbing, rung by rung. Maybe it was the vision of a perfectly harmonious family life you were curating day by day. This was your masterpiece. This was the story of your life. And every day you worked on it. But here's the thing. Building that dream in the second half of life is different. It's not like when you were 20 and a stumble was just a lesson, a failure was just a funny story you'd tell later. It's different now. It's heavier. You see, by the time you reach your 40s or 50s, you're not just building a project, you are adding to a life that has already been built. Imagine your life is a tall, intricate Jenga tower. Each block is a success, a relationship, a sacrifice, a lesson learned. You've spent decades carefully placing each one. The structure is impressive, it's stable, it is you. But society adds a strange pressure to this game. It whispers that by this age, you should have it all figured out. The tower should be complete. The game should be won. That LinkedIn study we talked about, that fear among professionals over 45 that a failure is a full stop, it comes from this very pressure. A stumble is no longer just a stumble. It feels like a final verdict. It feels like the whole tower is about to come crashing down. And then, one day, it does. Maybe it wasn't a dramatic explosion. Maybe it was a quiet death. The phone call that doesn't come. The numbers that don't add up. The promotion that goes to someone else. The realization that the harmony you worked so hard for was an illusion. The dream dies. And in that crushing silence that follows, a different kind of grief takes root. It's the grief for the wasted time, the grief for the sacrifices that now feel pointless. It's a private, invisible funeral for the future you were supposed to have. And the world doesn't send flowers. It just keeps moving, leaving you standing alone in the rubble of what used to be your North Star. The shame is heavy. The self-blame is a relentless voice in the middle of the night. And the exhaustion is profound. It's the weariness of a builder who has lost their blueprint. And in that crushing silence, we miss something. We miss the most important part of the story. The strange truth is this collapse is not a tragedy. It is a sacred demolition. The universe, your own deep psyche, is not punishing you. It is clearing the land.
It is taking away the blueprint you thought you wanted because it was too small for the cathedral you were actually meant to build. The pain you feel is real, the loss is real, but it is not the end. It is an invitation, a profound, terrifying, and beautiful invitation to stop building outwards and for the first time, perhaps in your entire life, to start excavating inwards. The collapse is not the story, it is the clearing of the land for what must be built next. Because in the rubble of what you thought you wanted lies the blueprint for who you are truly meant to be. And that's where we must look next. That's where the shadow is waiting.
Listen, so we are standing in the rubble of the Jenga tower. The sacred demolition is complete. And in the quiet aftermath, your psyche has extended an invitation to look at the blueprint for who you are truly meant to be. And that blueprint is hidden in your shadow. So what is this shadow? The word itself sounds ominous, dark, frightening. But the strange truth is, the shadow in Jungian wisdom is not your dark side. It is not evil. It is not something to be vanquished. Think of it this way. Imagine the house of your personality. It has many rooms. There's the bright, well-lit living room where you entertain guests. This is your persona. It's the perfect mother, the competent professional, the good daughter. It's the version of you that is acceptable, polished, and safe. But in the basement of that house, there is a locked room. And inside that room, you have stored everything you were ever taught was unacceptable. Your raw, unfiltered anger, your deep need for rest and solitude, your wild, untamed creativity, your fierce ambition, your messy, complicated vulnerability. That room is your shadow. The shadow isn't bad, it's just unintegrated. It is a treasure chest of vital energy that you've been taught to disown. And here is the secret that changes everything. The secret that begins the journey from failure to wisdom. Failure is not a verdict, it is a mirror. And when you look into the mirror of a profound disappointment, what you see reflected back is not your incompetence, it is your shadow asking to be seen. Here's the thing. When a dream dies, we don't just feel sad about the external event. We project our deepest, disowned shadow parts onto it. The failure becomes a giant screen, and we play the movie of our hidden insecurities upon it. We start blaming the mirror for the reflection. It's a cycle of self-blame that keeps us stuck. In fact, a study from Stanford University found that nearly 80% of our self-talk after a perceived failure is simply repetitive, unproductive blame, a story we tell ourselves on a loop. But shadow work is about stopping the movie, turning on the lights, and asking, what is this reflection really trying to show me? Let's make this real. Think about a career failure. The business you poured your life into didn't make it. The surface story, the one you tell yourself at 3 a.m. is, I'm not smart enough. I'm not a good leader. I failed. But the shadow work begins when you ask the deeper question. What part of me did I disown in the pursuit of this dream? Maybe the mirror of this failure is reflecting back your suppressed need for rest. Maybe your relentless drive, the part of you that refused to slow down, was a persona, and your shadow, the part that desperately needed stillness, manifested as burnout, which ultimately sabotaged the business. The failure wasn't a verdict on your intelligence, it was a mirror reflecting your exhaustion. Or think about a relationship that ended. The surface story is, I'm unlovable, something is wrong with me. But the shadow inquiry asks, what part of myself was I not allowed to be in this relationship? Perhaps the mirror of this heartbreak is reflecting your silenced voice. Maybe you disowned your anger, your boundaries, your own fierce needs, in order to be the agreeable partner. The relationship didn't fail because you were unlovable. It failed because a vital part of you, your shadow, was starving to death in the silence. The end of the relationship is a mirror reflecting your lost voice. It even applies to our health. A health crisis in midlife can feel like the ultimate betrayal. My body has failed me. But the shadow question is, what has my body been whispering to me for years that I refuse to hear? Perhaps the failure of your health is a mirror reflecting a lifetime of self-abandonment, of prioritizing everyone else's needs above your own. Do you see the pattern? In every case, the disappointment is not the enemy. It is a diagnostic tool. It is a teacher pointing with perfect, painful accuracy to the exact part of your soul that needs to be reclaimed. It is a compass showing you the way out of the rubble and into a deeper understanding of your own wholeness. So the collapse of the dream is not the end. It is a gift, a brutally painful but profoundly sacred gift. It forces you to stop looking at the blueprint you lost and instead to finally look in the mirror. So we have the diagnosis, we see the shadow in the mirror, but the most important question remains. How do we transform the exhaustion, the shame, the weariness of that reflection into actual wisdom? That is the art of alchemy, and that is where we are going next.
Listen, so we have found the diagnosis. We have looked in the mirror of our failure and seen the shadow staring back. But what happens now? Because the immediate aftermath of that reflection is not enlightenment. It is pain. It is a profound, soul-deep weariness. It's the exhaustion of having to carry the rubble of your own dream. It's the feeling of being stuck in a rut, the wheels of your life spinning in the mud of self-blame. There is a courtroom in your mind, and in the dead of night, the trial begins. The prosecutor is you. The judge is you. The jury is you. And the defendant, standing alone and exhausted, is also you. The evidence is replayed on a loop. The wrong decision, the missed opportunity, the word you shouldn't have said. And the verdict is always the same. Guilty. Guilty of not being enough. Guilty of failing. The strange truth is, this inner trial is the single most draining activity in the human experience. It consumes more energy than any marathon or boardroom battle, and it is utterly useless. Research from universities like the University of Texas has shown that self-criticism after a failure does not improve performance. In fact, it paralyzes it. It is self-compassion, the act of treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a good friend, that actually builds the resilience needed to try again. So we must call an end to the trial. We must dismiss the court. And we do that by changing the question. Here's the thing. For most of our lives, we have been asking the wrong question. When something goes wrong, we ask, why did this happen to me? It is a question that casts us as the victim. It keeps us powerless, stuck in the past, searching for someone or something to blame. The art of alchemy, the shift from weariness to wisdom, begins with a single courageous pivot. It begins when we ask a new question. What is this trying to show me about me? Do you feel the shift? The first question is a dead end. The second is a doorway. The first question leads to blame. The second leads to curiosity. And curiosity is the beginning of all transformation. When you shift this question, the failure is no longer a verdict. It becomes data. It becomes a receipt. It's a detailed list of what you paid, what you received, and what the true cost of that transaction was. And when you look at it with curiosity, not blame, you start to see the hidden wisdom. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was 52. After 25 years in corporate law, she finally took the leap.
She poured her savings into opening a small artisanal bookstore, her dream. For 2 years, she worked 18-hour days. She missed family dinners. Her health declined. And then, it failed. The store closed. And Sarah was crushed. Her inner courtroom was relentless. You were a fool. You're not a businesswoman. You failed your family. For months, she was stuck in that heavy, gray fog of weariness and regret. Then one day, in a moment of quiet desperation, she tried the new question. She sat down with her journal and she asked, "What is this failure trying to show me about me?" And she decided to look at the receipt. And what she saw shocked her. The data was clear. The price she paid for that dream was too high. The receipt listed 2 years of chronic stress, missed birthdays, a body that ached with exhaustion, a spirit that had lost its joy in the relentless pursuit of profit. And in that moment, the weariness began to transform. It was no longer the heavy fog of failure. It became the clear light of information. The data wasn't telling her she was a bad businesswoman. The data was telling her what she truly valued. It was showing her that a life of 18-hour workdays, no matter how noble the dream, was a life that was profoundly out of alignment with her authentic self. Her exhaustion wasn't a punishment, it was a compass. It was her soul, through the painful language of failure, finally telling her what it needed: balance, connection, creativity without the pressure of survival. That failure didn't end her story. It gave her back her plot. It gave her back herself. This is the alchemy. This is the shift from weariness to wisdom. You stop fighting the experience and you start learning from it. You stop seeing your setbacks as proof of your inadequacy, and you start seeing them as data points for your deepest self-discovery. The lead of your disappointment, when held with curiosity, begins to warm in your hands. It begins to glow. It begins to transform. But how do you hold it? How do you practice this on your own, in the quiet of your own home, when the voice of the inner critic is screaming? That requires a set of tools. It requires practice. And that is exactly where we are going now.
Listen, the voice of your inner critic is probably screaming right now. It's telling you this is all just talk, that you are in fact a failure and no amount of clever questions can change that. And that's okay. Let it scream. We are not here to fight it. We are here to befriend it. And we do that with practice. Here are 3 practical, gentle steps you can begin tonight to start the alchemical process of turning the lead of your disappointment into the gold of your wisdom. The first step is a courageous autopsy. You need a journal and 15 minutes of quiet, and you will ask 3 questions. First, what is the story I am telling myself about this failure? Write it all down, the raw, uncensored story. I failed because I'm not smart enough. I failed because I'm too old. I failed because I'm not disciplined. Get the prosecutor's entire case down on paper. Second, after you've written it, take a deep breath and ask, is that story 100% true? Is it possible that other factors were at play? The economy, bad timing, simple bad luck. Is it possible that you are not a failure, but a human who tried something difficult and it didn't work out? This question gently cracks the foundation of the inner courtroom. And the third, most important question, what hidden need or desire did this failure reveal? Did the failure of your business reveal your deep, unmet need for rest? Did the end of your relationship reveal your desperate need to have your own voice? This question shifts you from the courtroom to the archaeological dig. You are no longer looking for blame. You are looking for treasure. Once you have the story on paper, you can move to the next level. This is the second step, a quiet conversation. This is a simple 5-minute meditation. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and instead of pushing the feeling of failure away, I want you to invite it in. Give it a shape, a color, a texture. Maybe it's a heavy, cold stone in your stomach. Maybe it's a tight, thorny vine around your chest.
And then you speak to it, not with anger, but with curiosity. Ask it, what are you trying to protect me from? What are you afraid will happen if I try again? What do you need to feel safe? You're not fighting a monster. You are listening to a terrified part of yourself that created the feeling of failure to stop you from getting hurt again. When you listen to it, its power over you begins to dissolve. And that brings us to the final and most profound practice, the third step, the power of acceptance. This is where the true alchemy happens. For years, you've been taught that your cracks, your scars, your failures are things to be hidden, ashamed of. But there is an ancient Japanese art form called Kintsugi. When a piece of pottery breaks, they don't throw it away. They meticulously put it back together, and they fill the cracks with gold lacquer. The philosophy is that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. The scars are not something to hide. They are the most beautiful part of its story. This is the power of acceptance. You stop trying to pretend you were never broken. You stop wishing the failure never happened. Instead, you honor it. You see the golden wisdom in the cracks, the resilience, the lessons learned. In fact, research by Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading expert on the topic, shows that self-compassion, not self-criticism, is the single greatest predictor of resilience after a setback. Kintsugi is self-compassion made visible. Your failures are your gold seams. They are the proof that you lived, that you dared, that you risked. They are the marks of a life fully lived, not a life perfectly curated. These are the tools: a courageous autopsy in your journal, a quiet conversation with the feeling itself, and the profound acceptance of Kintsugi. This is how you befriend your failure. But what is the result? What does the woman who has befriended her failures actually look like, feel like, live like? That is the authentic self we are about to reclaim.
Listen, so what does she look like? The woman who has befriended her failures. What does she feel like? How does she walk through the world? Here's the thing. The goal was never to just bounce back. Bouncing back implies you return to the same shape you were before you broke. That is not the path of the soul. The path of the soul is integration. It is to become more because of the break. The woman who has integrated her failures doesn't hide her scars. She sees them as the golden seams in her Kintsugi soul. They are the proof of her courage. They are the source of her deepest wisdom. She has a quiet confidence that isn't born from a string of successes, but from the deep knowing that she can survive a fall. She is not just resilient, she is anti-fragile. She doesn't just withstand the storm, she is strengthened by it. She stops walking on eggshells, no longer terrified of making a mistake, because she understands that a failure is not a verdict on her worth, but simply a course correction from her inner compass. She trusts herself more, not less, after a setback, because she knows she has the tools to learn from it. And the most beautiful part is the ripple effect. When you stop judging your own failures, you stop judging the failures of others. You become a safer harbor for your children, your partner, your friends. You teach them, not with words, but with your very being, that it is safe to try and fail, that our worth is not in our perfection, but in our willingness to show up messily and courageously to the arena of life. Your personal transformation becomes a quiet permission slip for everyone around you to be more human. So this is the wisdom of failure. It is the understanding that your life's story is not defined by the chapters that ended in disappointment. It is defined by the depth, the compassion, and the unshakable strength you forged in the fire of their closing. The most powerful version of you isn't the one who never stumbled. She is the one who learned to rise from the rubble, not as she was, but as who she was always meant to become, whole, authentic, and unafraid of the cracks that let the light in.
If a failure from your past came to mind during our time together, and you are ready to look at it not as a scar, but as a map, I invite you to share in the comments the words, "I am ready to learn." Let's turn this space into a library of collective wisdom, where every story of a closed door shows another where a window might open. And this is just one piece of the puzzle. After we have learned from our failures, we often have to face a far subtler shadow, the hidden cost of being the good one. If you wish to continue this journey, in the next video, we will confront the shadow of sacrifice and discover how to reclaim your life from the weariness of unchosen obligations. Thank you for your courage.